this lesson we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting fractions. By the end of the lesson we must be able to add or subtract two fractions less than 1. We should be able to add or subtract two mixed numbers, and some of us will be able to solve word problems involving adding or subtracting fractions. Okay, so we're going to do a quick recap and we're going to find the lowest common multiple of these pairs of numbers. Okay, so if you remember back to a few sessions ago, we had a look at finding the lowest common multiple. So just to recap, we've got 2 and 3. The lowest common multiple is going to be 6. They will both have 6 in their times tables, and that's the lowest common multiple. So we had 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. And then for 3s we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, and so on. So the lowest common multiple is going to be 6. Okay, so if we want the lowest common multiple of 2 and 4, if you need to, you can list down your times tables for 2 and 4, but the lowest common multiple is going to be 4. For the next one, for 2 and 5, it's going to be 10. And then for 6 and 8, let's just write down our times tables. So the lowest common multiple is going to be 24. Okay, so when we add and subtract fractions, we need to find the lowest common denominator. Okay, the lowest common denominator is just finding the lowest common multiple for the denominators. So let's have a look at an example. We want to add together 2/3 and 1/5. So here I have got my grid. I want 2/3, that's 1/3, 2/3, and I want to add on a 5th. Okay, so adding on a 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1/5 is one of these columns. Okay, so that is 3 blocks in that column. So that's 1, 2, 3, and in total I've got 5, 10, 13 out of the 15 blocks. If I'm just to use my numbers and I don't want to draw my diagram, then we can find the lowest common multiple. So you need to find the lowest common multiple of 3 and 5. So for the lowest common multiple, we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 and 18. For the 5 times tables, 5, 10, 15, 20, the lowest common multiple is going to be 15. So if I have a look at my original question, I've got 2/3 and I want to make that into something over 15. Okay, I want the denominators to be the same. How can I go from 3 to 15? Times it by 5, so I need to do the same thing to the top. Okay, so 2 times 5 is 10. Now if I look at 1/5, we know that the denominator needs to be 15, and that's by multiplying by 3. So 5 times 3 is 15, 1 times 3 is 3. So now I have the two fractions that I need for my addition. So I'm going to add those two together. So I have got 10 over 15 plus 3 over 15, and then we add these as we've done before. 10 plus 3 is 13 over 15, which is what we saw from the diagram as well. Okay, for the next question, we've got 5, 6, take away 3/4. You could do a diagram, but there's a quick way to do it. If we find the lowest common multiple, so the lowest common multiple of 6 and 4, so we've got 6, 12, 18, 4, 8 and 12. So the lowest common multiple is going to be 12. So that is my denominator. So something over 12 take away something over 12. So that's my two fractions. 6 times 2 gives me the 12, so I do that to the top and the bottom. 4 times 3 gives me the 12. 5 times 2 is 10, 6 times 2 is 12, and then for the second one, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12. So it's 10 twelfths take away 9 twelfths, 10 take away 9 is 1, my denominator stays the same, so it's going to be 1/12. Okay, here's another example. We've got 2 3/4 take away 1 5/8. Okay, the first thing that I would do is to convert the mixed numbers into top-heavy fractions. So if you think about the first one, so we've got 2 3/4. If I have my diagrams, so that's 2, and I split them into quarters, 1, 2 3/4, 1, 2, 3. So how many quarters have I got in total? It's going to be 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that is 11 quarters. Okay, the trick to doing that is to do how many quarters in 1, that's going to be 4. How many quarters in 2 is 8, so 4 times 2 is 8, and then add on the 3. So if you multiply this one, and then you add on the top. So multiply by the bottom, add on the top. Okay, so 4 times 2 is 8, 8 plus 3 gives me 11. So that's 11 quarters. If I use the same method for 1 5/8, how many eighths are in 1? That's going to be 8. So I've got 8 eighths in 1, and then I've got another 5/8. So 8 plus 5 is going to be 13. These are my two fractions that I need to use. So we have 11 over 4 take away 13 over 8. Now I can find my lowest common multiple for 4 and 8. So the lowest common multiple is going to be 8. Okay, so to make it equal to 8, I need to times this by 2 on the top and the bottom. And then this one can stay the same. So I'm left with 22, so that's 11 times 2 is 22, 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, so we've got 22 over 8, take away 13 over 8. 22 take away 13 is 9, so I'm left with 9 over 8, and you can leave your answer like that. So for these questions you're going to evaluate the following. So the first one, you've got some addition and subtraction. The second one is the same, but they've given you some mixed numbers as well. And then the last row, you've got more than one fraction to add or subtract. Okay, so you need to find the lowest common multiple of 6, 16 and 8. Okay, so you can convert them, find the equivalent fractions, and then you just add as normal. In these next questions, you've got some worded questions. So in a class of children, 3/4 are Chinese, 1/5 are Malay, and the rest are Indian. What fraction of the class are Indian? For these, you're going to have to remember that a whole class is equal to 1. Okay, so all of your fractions need to add up to 1. Here are the next questions. So here are the answers. Okay, so here are the answers for the first two questions. When you get to question 2, you can either write your answer as a mixed number or as a top-heavy fraction. And the next answers. Okay, so here are the answers for questions 3, 4 and 5. So as I said, you need to do 1 and then you minus the fractions that they've given you to see how much is left. So we get 1/20, 1/6 and 1/3. Okay, in these next questions it says, because of an illness, 2/5 of a school was absent one day. If the school had 650 pupils on the register, how many were absent that day? So we want to find 2/5 of 650. Okay, if we had 1/5, 1/5 would mean that we take our total amount and we divide it by 5. 2/5 means that we take 2/5 means that we have 2 lots of that 1/5. So 1/5 of 650. So it's 650 divided by 5, which is 130. So 2/5 is going to be double that, so that's 260. So 260 pupils were absent on that day. Okay, for question 7, it says which is the biggest? Half of 96, 1/3 of 141, 2/5 of 120, or 3/4 of 68. So for each of those, you're going to have to work out what is a half of 96, 1/3 of 141, and so on. Once you've worked those out, the biggest one is going to be 3/4 of 68, because that gives us 51. Question 8. To increase sales, a shop reduced the price of a car stereo radio by 2/5. If the original price was £85, what was the new price? So we want 2/5 of £85, which is £34. So the car stereo was reduced by £34, so the new price is going to be £51. The last one is a bit more tricky. It says, at a burger eating competition, Lionel ate 34 burgers in 20 minutes, while Brian ate 26 burgers in 20 minutes. How long after the start of the competition would they have consumed a total of 30 burgers between them? So we need to see how many burgers they ate altogether in 20 minutes. So we've got 34 burgers and we've got 26. That's going to give us 60 burgers in 20 minutes. So 60 burgers in 20 minutes. So we want to know how long it will take to eat 30 burgers between them. So going from 60 to 30, that's half of it. So we need to reduce the time, or half the time as well. So that's going to be 20 minutes divided by 2 is going to be 10 minutes. So they're going to have 30 burgers in 10 minutes. Okay, so here is your homework, and you need to add the different fractions. There's some subtraction as well. And then you're given some worded questions.